Hey guys, Andy and Spoken Label back in the house on a Sunday evening. Yeah, it's a late one tonight, but we've been on the radio this afternoon, me and the boss have. So, been over to the wonderful Ruth O'Reilly at 11 Dunes All FM, and we then took bloody ages to get across from 11 Dunes to Denton, which we could have walked back quicker, but I know. There's another story, another day. Now we're over to a part of the world I actually know fairly well today, actually. And my guest today doesn't know I know this part of the world either, because my brother's got a friend over this way in Wrexham. That's a lovely area as well. We went out with her and her now ex-partner's 40th a couple of years ago, and we got trashed around the centre of Wrexham. So, but anyway, originally, obviously, my friend today is from, I've known her for a long time now, probably about a good 7 or 8 years. And we've got a fantastic Lisa O'Hare with us today. Now, it's been ages, Lisa, hasn't it, since we last spoke as well?
It really has, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's like people wondering. I first met Lisa back in 2019 when she did her first appearance on Manchester Fringe. That's why then she came to speak easy a few times on the months before and after that.
Yeah.
And she's been a busy lady since then. But yeah, so I said, Lisa, oh, yeah, it's been ages. So, right, Lisa, obviously, for people that don't know you, and I suspect there is a few people here today tuning in that do know you, so you better give us the background about yourself because I know you told me already you had a big gap, didn't you, in creativity. So were you
Yeah.
writing as a kid then originally, were you?
Um, yeah, so I loved books and like
Mm,
writing little plays and learning poems like the Spike Milligan poems and reciting them. And I was in like school productions and things like that. And I was in Drama Society at university for the first year. And then I dropped out of that and I just concentrated on studies. And then I concentrated on getting a job. Then I concentrated on keeping the job. And then
yeah.
just carried on in, the bubble of adulthood and all of the things that that brings. Until in my early 40s, I took redundancy. And instead of just finding another job, I took time out and um, somebody put a seed in my head of what would you do if you had no fear? And I'm not one for bungee jumping or anything like that. And this little seed planted, and I went home that night after they'd asked this big life question, and I Googled how do you put on a fringe show because I'd always been to Edinburgh and loved it. And I'd been to the Manchester Fringe because that sometimes was where I worked. They sometimes hired out spaces at the Co-op to the Manchester Fringe, kind of like 2015, 16 time, and I remember that being in my head. Um, yeah, so I jumped in both feet at something that I'd always wanted to try, even though I'd not written a thing in all of that time. But I kind of thought if I sign up, nobody can talk me out of it. Nobody can then go, "You've done what?" or "Why? What are you going to do?" I would have overthought it. So I just jumped in and applied, and then I worked it all out from there. Then I started to write. Then I started to meet other people, other creatives who led me on an adventure of many ways. And that it was kind of, yeah, a really strange way into creativity, but one I don't regret.
That's the best way to do it, actually. I know what you mean with that because I started writing myself when I was a kid and I'd had a couple of lulls. And when I got into the open mic circuit a few years before you, it kind of, I think when you step into that field, it's an explosion in your brain, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. How did you feel then when you started writing? Were you like really struggling? Thinking, heck, what have I jumped into here then?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was,
because I wasn't a poet or anything, and I knew I wasn't a stand-up, so I thought, but I'm doing a one-woman show because the idea of collaboration never came into my mind because I thought, well, nobody knows me, I don't know what I'm doing, so that didn't come into my mind. It's just I want to do this thing, and I chose the name of my show when because you had to put a
mm,
name in, Fly, and then I worked out around that what it would be, and it ended up being kind of a one woman kind of theatre piece, kind of light-hearted humour, but it's basically an office worker trapped at their desk who just went on flights of fancy. They were on a conference call on a headset, and then they just kind of zone out, and then they'd go into their daydreams where they'd be doing a TED talk or being an MP to change the world for the better, not the worse. And yeah, doing a bit of stand-up, doing a bit of poetry through that, just like it's, taking little ideas of what I could be doing instead of just being on this call from hell. So once I got into that, a lot of ideas came, and that like the first draft was very poor, and I just kept going. And when I kind of rehearsed it out loud, it got a bit better. Then when I tried to imagine it in front of people, I thought, no, this still needs to be better. So yeah, it was kind of a real, yeah, a real adventure, real fun thing to do. And I put accents to all of the different characters
Oh,
as well.
fantastic. Oh, brilliant. I think as well,
Yeah.
like when you've done one of these sort of things, like when you step into the create circuit, it does stop you because you said to me already before, you've done more than I realised you had as well. I know you've done the Manchester Fringe again after that, and you've done Edinburgh on
Yes.
top of that, haven't you? And also Camden, which I
Yes.
didn't know about. So were each one
Yeah.
of these were different shows, or would you revise versions of the same show?
So the second time I went to Manchester Fringe, that was after lockdown. So by then I'd started to write a lot of poetry, and I'd got, in my opinion, better at writing
Of
over
course, yeah.
that time. And I thought, right, I'll do a poetry and storytelling show in 2022. So 2021 was a bit still. You didn't know if you could actually go ahead and do anything because things are still being kind of cancelled last minute. But 2022 felt safe. And I thought I'll write one, and I'll get myself back in the game, because again, lockdown made me think you can't put off things that you really want to do because you don't know when they'll be stripped away from you again. So just go for it. So and I sat down to write a poetry and storytelling show, thinking I'd use some of the poems that I'd already written, um, and somehow make them into the show. But I was like, none of them worked. They felt like I was shoehorning something together and cobbling it together. So I wrote something completely new, and it basically told the story of being a creative child, why I dropped out of being creative at university, and then why where I lost myself in my work for my 20s and 30s, and when I found myself back in my 40s and feeling like my whole self again, because yeah, I still work, but I've got this great outlet through creativity. So it kind of told that story, and it starts with um, my first poetry book, Silly Verse for Kids by Spike Milligan, and it nods to that back at the end of the show. So that's the one that I did at Manchester, then I did it at Camden. I did it at Morecambe Fringe as well, in 2023, just before I took it up to Edinburgh in 2023. And I did
Brilliant.
for 3 days in Edinburgh, and it was just a big bucket list moment for me to do it there.
Oh God, yeah, it would be one it straight away. But I understand you completely with that. Fantastic. Now, obviously, like, people would obviously know as well. Obviously, you're not doing it now for various reasons we won't go into. But I know you then around about the point not long after the first Fringe pitch, you got involved in co-running the Boast, didn't you, at one point as
Yes.
well?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Oh, I loved it. So yeah, Verbose was one of the spoken word evenings that I got introduced to back in 2019, along with Speakeasy. And again, like Speakeasy, online, I'd go to Verbose, and then I'd keep going back. And then I got invited to co-host it in late 2022, and I started in January 2023. And I did that until last summer. And I loved it. It's just the amount of people that you see, brand new to really experienced writers, every time it kind of lit you up. It's just so lovely to see how different people approach their writing, because it wasn't just poetry. There's short stories, and people bring in parts of novels that they're working on. All those things. Just it just takes my breath away how talented people are, that you're standing behind them in the queue at the co-op, and then they've got all of this, talent bursting in them, and that you see it on the stage.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
absolutely adored it. Yeah.
Same for me. Like we said, I've been doing Speakeasy now for 6 years now. Would you believe?
Wow.
I know, pretty long. That is crazy. Just or 7 years actually. But like it's just, if it's amazing. 'Cause you get so many people coming through the door. Some you may
Yeah.
never see again, so you may never hear of again.
Mhm.
But it's like you do when you see them there on stage, and like if it's the first time ever, or like as you said, people have done 20 years. You sat there thinking.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love people for that to do so. Yeah, and
Yeah.
respect you for doing the Boats with Voices, one of the busiest nights in the Manchester circuit. It's like it's I know how busy it gets there myself. So well done for that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
obviously, we're here today to talk about I can't believe this is your debut collection. You stunned me on that one first of all. Obviously,
Well, I did have a book in lockdown,
hmm.
but this is the collection of the poems that I was writing for me. Yeah.
Now, obviously, I love if people look at the cover of it, the cover's very, very clever because it's proving I exist, but in brackets, poets. Yeah. And you see there now,
Yeah.
I love the anagram of that I do. So now, how did this come together as a title, first of all?
Yeah. I was playing with a lot of different titles and there were a couple that kept popping into my head. And yeah, I do love playing with words, and I thought if I could have something that had poet on the front, and a little bit of me was inspired by Charlie XCX and Brat. I thought poet would be just a great title on its own, but then I started just play with how can I use that word, and then I went more to kind of the era that I'm from. I'm not Charlie XCX's target audience,
Neither am
but
I, right? So, yeah.
pulp was my era. So I kind of borrowed their font and played with that and proving I exist because you've got the poet is kind of imbued in that phrase. And that's kind of what I've been doing the whole time is kind of writing myself into a new form of existence. And by publishing the book, those poems exist beyond me now, and that's kind of what I wanted from the book. So yeah, once that title worked its way into my head, it just really stuck.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. That I know I've had books like that when you know what the title is, and no matter what happens in the book, that title is going to stay the same.
Yeah,
Now, if people look at the book, there is 7 sections in the book, and you confuse yourself. You told me already. We're referring to two of them twice as six as six,
yeah,
but yeah, you confused me with that. So, but
yeah,
I'm easily confused. So now we're going to cover a couple of try and do a couple of poems in each section here, because but I said within 7 sections, we might take a while. This right. So let's see how we go. Now, obviously,
yeah,
section one. Then these ones are about me. Now, the poem I love two in this section in particular. Wrexham is the name. And obviously, I've told you before because my brother's friend that lives in Wrexham.
yeah,
So obviously, this is great because this is a great introduction to you as a person. And I love the reference in bold in capital letters of lager shouting, "Feed me till I want no more." Now,
yeah.
where did that? Obviously, about something specific. So tell us more about this, please.
Yeah, so yeah, well, when you go to a Wrexham football match, particularly um, a few years ago, one of the songs that they would sing would be Wrexham Lager,
Oh,
feed me till I want no more. And so that was in my head. I want because when and Wrexham is the name is another football chants that they have at the football grounds. So that's kind of pulling those two strands together. And obviously the song Born Slippy is lager shouting. And because so I've kind of mixed it all together because Wrexham is known worldwide for now for football, but it's also been known in the past worldwide for its lager because it was the first UK town to create lager. Um, so it's kind of bringing the history of Wrexham together in a fun way, and it's actually was in response to a prompt that Evra Rose, who's also given me a quote for the book, she gave me to write a poem about Wrexham. So that's kind of where that kernel came from to create the poem.
Ah, brilliant. That's fine. That explains why I would. No, makes sense. Makes sense because it's a great piece to start off the book. I think to get
Thank
really.
you.
I think it sums you up really well as a person. So it's a great choice indeed. Now, obviously, on the other piece I want to talk about on the book, this you wouldn't necessarily know this more, but when did you first move to Manchester? If you don't mind me asking.
98.
Well, you probably would remember it in Rock World then, wouldn't you? And Gillies
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The second piece to Tiv, this
Yes.
really made me think of Rock World.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can full well remember headbanging to Loaded by Primal Scream at
Yeah.
that point. Sometimes
Yeah.
more drunk than others, yeah. So yeah, it's got that sort of like independent sort of club feel about that. So I'm presuming that was a club you grew up in
Yeah.
all the time in Wrexham, was it?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a an indie night in a club just outside Wrexham called the Buckley Tivoli. And it had all sorts of bands playing there in the height of kind of Britpop. So you'd have Super Furry Animals, Stereophonics, Catatonia, the Seahorses were there, Ocean Colour Scene, Manson. Oasis played there once, but I wasn't there then. But everybody else in Wrexham was. Dodgy, Shed 7. It was just a Britpop dream. It was the NME come to life in North Wales. Yeah, I
Brilliant.
loved it
No,
there.
no, it does sound like it. And when you get that sort of a club like that, I know Rockwool had died off by the time it was closed, but I had a lot
Yeah,
of memories of it back in the late 90s, certainly in the early 2000s as well. It's pretty, it's that something, it's part of you as a person. I think in those
yeah,
sort of memories, isn't it? So yeah, I
yeah.
got it completely. I saw the nostalgia and I thought it worked really well. So,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, I think you made a good progressive choice here with the next one when you put still me, but getting older. Yeah, and this obviously I said the birthdays these days really hit me quite hard because I said I'm in my 50s now, but I love the bit about when you said building bridges all the time when you work, not ditches. I thought to myself,
Yeah.
yeah, I can well relate to that. And it's like you must do yourself sometimes using your creativity. When there's some projects that you start there thinking, I've dug myself into a ditch in this, I don't know how to bloody get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you just got to keep on rolling, really, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, you do like it. It's my second novel, if people say in the back of it, the cover today, that took me, well, 13 years to write because I got the first half of it done in about 2 years, then
Yeah.
11 years to get the second part
Yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
it goes that way, yeah. So, yeah, I liked as well also that how to have a midlife crisis as well in that section. And I
Yeah.
completely agree with you in this piece. It does make you so. Tell us about what made you want to write this piece then.
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I joke that my whole second lease of life through poetry and creativity is my midlife crisis, but I don't feel like I'm going to put it away. So it's not really a full crisis because or midlife, it's just reclaiming it. But yeah, but part of that has led me to have, more confidence in all parts of life beyond creativity. It's given me a new sense of purpose, a new sense of self-esteem. Um, so yeah, and I talk about treating myself to an unfulfilled dream, and that's what I'm doing. And I've done, I'm still clinging on to the creativity that it's led me to. So that's kind of what made me think of writing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense completely. I think you do is I think when you get into like we both know people that are in there very young and they've burst through. I can remember like people like Esther. I know people like Esther Kosh and you know Esther. I love Esther to bits and she knows what to do,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, she's so good.
Astonishing she is. And
Yeah.
I first met her when one of her first readings was Speakeasy and she was about 18 at the time. And I'm
Yeah.
sat there thinking, I don't believe you've got this sort of creativity power because I couldn't even string two words together at 18. So
Yeah. She's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
breathtaking is the right
Yes,
word. Yeah.
yeah, do you get people like us who come with it much later on, and it's great you see people who can do that sort of thing. But like you're right with it, and it's like it's almost like you're having a midlife crisis or something by doing our creativity when we get into the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
But
because it's
yeah, yeah,
to everyone else, it's come out of nowhere. It's
yeah,
like, where was this? Where's it come from? But yeah.
yeah. And that's exactly the point with both of us there. So yeah, I agree with you completely with it. Now, obviously, I love the play on words in section three. Still me, but sillier. Now that's clever. That was that always going to be the third section.
Oh gosh, me putting this book into order was the hardest part.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I brought all the poems I've written over the last 5 years together in one place for the first time. So they were in notepads, my notes on my phone, my laptop. Uh, it took ages just to collate them. So that was one. That was draft one, and unreadable in a so then it was like working out what the themes were. And again, very di difficult to do, but I knew I had very strong section of silly poems.
Oh God, yeah.
And they
Oh,
could
that's for
not be,
sure.
yeah, they could not be labeled as anything other than unashamedly silly. So I think that came once I kind of thought, well, I've got some very personal ones. I've got ones about me, you know, accepting them in midlife, but then these are just the silly ones. So that then I think it kind of just presents me as a whole.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
It's a great way. It's a great playing words. Two serious sections to go completely stupid. I love that. It's very me. So yeah. Now, obviously, I love the lament for Doritos. Now, I didn't know you're a Craig David fan, mind you, when I was reading his poem.
Yeah.
Where did this come from then? And where?
So this came from this. I wrote this quite early on. I wrote this before lockdown, early 2020. I'd been out with some friends and I told them I was writing poems, and I think I just sent my first one off to BBC Upload. I was all excited that it'd been accepted. And I said, but even if that's the only poem I ever write that's any good, oh, I'll be pleased with myself. I don't know what else to write about now. And they said, and they weren't poets; they were just friends. And they said, well, don't they say write about what you know? And they'd all be talking about, healthy eating, and I was feeling ashamed because I was eating Doritos. And so I went home and I wrote about Doritos.
Best way. And where did the Craig? I take it. Are you a Craig David fan then? Are you? People see
No,
it.
again,
Oh,
it's the pure silliness. It's leaning into the silliness. So that bit where the Craig David bit of I put the bag in the bin on
hmm.
Tuesday, I sing it when I perform it. And I think I performed it live kind of in early March 2020.
Hmm.
I think you were there
Probably.
uh, in the city centre somewhere in Gulliver's upstairs.
Yeah.
And I remember really enjoying performing it live. And then lockdown happened. I was like, oh, I can't perform
Yeah.
it anymore. But I took it, I did it a lot online on Zooms, and it went down well. And I enjoyed singing that
Yeah.
that
No.
part. But yeah, no, again, it wasn't really that I'm a Craig David fan. It's just that I thought that'd be really silly.
Yeah, sometimes doing something you don't like is often that adds to the hilarity of it. Yeah, so yeah, I
Yeah.
get it completely with that. And this is what reminds me of the next piece I want to talk about is hands in the air forever,
Oh
because
yeah.
there's a great reference to James and sit down in the first line of the poem, and I actually saw James do this live at the Boardwalk in Manchester in the late
Okay.
90s. And I remember they said 100 odd people in the audience all sat down when the sit down came on, and everyone got back up when they did come home straight after, apart
Yeah.
from me, because my bloody left knee buckled, and they had to carry me out to the venue
Oh
and
no.
afterwards. It
Oh
just went,
no.
it went, and I
Yeah.
thought, and then I saw, I think it was a bit of a dodgy left knee after that. Since I was only 25,
Well,
so. But listen, listen to me, what were you? Where did Hands in the Air come from forever? Because it's obviously, I know it's a big music poem for you again.
yeah. I think I'd written one that was about, yeah, I think it did come from the TIV. I think I wrote about dancing when I was younger at the TIV, and then I thought, but I still like dancing now. So I want to make it more up to date about how I feel about, still enjoying going to concerts, feeling that I need to make the most of the time when I can, because one day you might not be able to squeeze down into the front and bounce along with everybody else. One day you might not be able to go to the gig at all. So when you get those chances to really just enjoy those moments, because the memories do live with you. So it's about that. It's about, really making the most of the time. And I think when I'm older, I feel that even stronger than when I was younger. Because yeah, everything's fun when you're young.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
when you're
completely.
older, you're like, oh, I don't get out all the time, so let's go for it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. growing up, then obviously, I know it's a hard question, this, and I'll tell you mine in a minute because I've got two that stick to mind for me. Has there been any gigs that have really stuck in your memories over time, whether been good or indifferent?
Oh, so I think the Charlatans at the Albert Hall, Manchester. I think I saw them in 2018. And again, I was in my early 40s. Um, and again, everybody at the Charlatans around my age or a little bit older, really. So I don't feel, like I'm encroaching on youth space. But
Oh yeah.
I did think, oh, I'm going down the front here. I was on my own as well. I was like, I'm going down the front. I'm going to have fun. So I remember that one because I just thought I felt different about gigs and all sorts. So I really enjoyed that feeling of being at a gig and just doing what I wanted and going down the front, even though yeah, I was on my own. And then I made friends that night, and it was great. And then the other one, I think there are a few to think of, but I'll go with going to Leeds Festival last year with my niece, and we went down quite near the front for the Prodigy,
Oh,
and we both loved it. We're completely different age ranges. She's a young teenager, and I'm in my later 40s now, and yeah, she loved it. I loved it. We bounced at the front for a bit, and then I got her out quite quickly. We watched from the side, but yeah, that was a great experience and a lifelong memory I'll have. Yeah.
oh God, yeah. Two, I've got plenty like you, but two that stick in my head was, and they're older ones than you, because I don't get as many concerts nowadays. Is no, I'll do the other one actually. I'll do the two kinder ones, right? I was going to mention about when I saw Oasis at oh God, in the city back in the mid 90s before they got signed and they were terrible. But that's a story of another day. That and they were terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Two stick in my head. One was I saw a band called the Chameleons. If you heard of them.
Hmm.
And that was just after they reformed in 2000, and they played the oh God, my mind's gone blank now. The club near me, and mine's gone bloody blank in Ashton. Oh no, I can see it as well. I know. The one in Ashton they played, the
Yeah,
reunion
yeah.
gig. We're at the very first one, and there's people there from Canada and America that flown in
Wow.
specially for that gig. And that venue, and mine's gone blank in it as well. Oh, what's the name of it called? Anyway, but it can only handle 150. They got 275 people in there, which is
Oh,
brilliant.
wow.
Absolutely packed to the rafters.
Yeah.
And the other one that sticks in my head was for Amanda, because you know Amanda's a massive Kiefer Sutherland fan,
Oh,
don't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
So she dragged me to go and see him, and
Oh, yeah.
it was really good. It was the two times I
Good.
seen him. First time was what 18, I think it was 2018, and he was astonishing. He was really good. He had a really good band with him, and I sat there thinking, I thought, this is a movie star that can actually sing.
That's amazing.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, but I know that's what happened then. So yes, I know. Now we've talked about Manchester. Ironically, the next section is about Manchester.
Yeah.
Now, I found the first poem album was really interesting, the case against nostalgia. I agreed with your points here about talent. Well, and I was at the ass end over the years, and well, anyway, I'll move on from that. But yeah, where did the point this piece come from?
It was kind of that thing. It was a love letter to talent in Manchester and grassroots venues and the people like yourself who put on events that give people a platform, the venues that give us space to do those things, whether it's so I've used the a band as an example, but it could be any type of art. So where it's an art display in the back of a shop in the Northern Quarter to um, comedy nights to music open mic nights, all of those DJ nights, all of those things that give people, an outlet to kind of connect as well as practice their art and show it off. That connection that it creates as well. So it is that's the main driver for creating it. And I wanted to shine a light on that because I was doing a performance of that at the Refuge Hotel. Um, where there was a piece of art created around that poem by the artist Emma Evans. And I really wanted to kind of use that opportunity to say, Manchester is full of great history and the Hacienda was great, but I haven't been there. But what I love now is about um the part of the city that's given me a new lease of life, and I wanted to shine that light on it. So that's what created that poem.
Nice, brilliant. No, good piece. Now, conscious of the time here today, everyone, we're going to have to, the other sections are going to have to one poem each, unfortunately. I
Yeah.
would love to have asked you tons of more questions, but
Oh,
it would have been a 2 hour podcast. So now,
yeah.
I know what I like. So, okay, slave to the algorithm. I've got this right. Slave to the algorithm.
Yeah.
Now, this was, I think, it was the longest section in the book, actually, as
Yeah.
my memory was. Now, before I ask you a point about this, what is the conscious decision about this, the longest section in the book, or is it just natural selection?
Uh, well, it's kind of natural, but this part of the book was one that I have submitted to lots of publishers over the years. And it got longlisted, I think, twice. And it's kind of when it got rejected, kind of maybe a third time, I thought, okay, I'm just going to self-publish now. And then that kind of changed my whole outlook on what I was going to put in the book because I thought, well, I won't just put in poems about the algorithms and being online and chronically online. I'll use it to be a book that kind of documents my new lease of life.
Yeah,
But the
makes
slave
sense.
to the algorithm part that's why it is a bit longer because I have written genuinely about being online too much,
Well,
a
we all
lot.
are. We all are.
Yeah,
So,
and I'd written a lot of poems, but I have written enough for a collection of their own, and I just took um that was really hard to edit down.
I bet it
But
was.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
why it's longest. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why it's longest.
Yeah, it's no, it makes sense. Now, I loved my favorite piece in this one was probably the title piece, really, My Algorithm and I. And
Yeah,
yeah, I love the fact we made it almost like a real person.
yeah,
Or the saying I use is almost like a little devil
yeah,
trying to tempt you like into consumerism. So very, very funny and clever piece.
yeah.
So tell us about that piece and how felt like it was the title track to the album, nearly this really.
Yeah, so that is about, when you go online and you get adverts for things and you convince your phone can hear you, because it's just telling you something that you've been thinking about to buy or something you've never ever thought about, and it gives you an insecurity out of nowhere or an urge to, buy something frivolous that you would never think of. So yeah, it's about that knowing culture of every time you're online, you're basically being advertised to buy something and do something different, lose weight, buy new
Yeah.
clothes, something. Get an eye cream that's going to change your life.
And it doesn't. Yeah, no, I agree with you. No, yeah,
Yeah.
it's complete crap, really. So, yeah, but listen, that's consumerism for you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree. It kind of links in well this section, I think, to your next section. Actually, this Lisa's lessons, and
Mhm.
I love the irony behind this, the fact that sometimes it doesn't in your case, right?
Yeah.
So, now there's a few pieces I want to talk about this one, but I'm gonna have to go with the obvious one. I like the fact about being more Drew Barrymore. So,
Okay.
tell us about your relationship with Drew Barrymore. Not the fact that you actually know her, for people wondering,
Yeah, no, I
right?
don't
So,
know. I never met her. Um, well, yeah, Drew Barrymore has been kind of on the silver screen for as long as I can remember. So E.T. was like one of the first films I like literally remember going to see at the cinema. But more recently, obviously, again, she's online a lot, and she films herself going out in the rain, going, when there's a moment, when there's a chance to go out in the rain, just, go and soak yourself in it and love every moment. I thought you don't live in Manchester, you'd be out all the time.
oh,
You never get indoors.
I think personally, she lasted about a week over here and bugger up back to LA because
Yeah, she'd be
she couldn't handle the
freezing.
weather.
You'd have pneumonia. But
Yeah,
yeah, so it's kind of like that, but it is like, yeah, it's I want to be like Drew Barrymore, be unrestrained in the joy, because that is a quality that comes across in the videos that she does. But yeah, very funny.
no, yeah,
Yes.
but I agree completely. Oh, brilliant. Now, that kind of makes sense and following into your next section. I think you got these older spot on with this book, actually, the bigger picture. After you do talk about life lessons, you look at it in a bigger thing. So I'm going to talk about two in this section. The mirror image, first of all, and too many men. Most will come to too
Yeah.
many men in a minute, the reason behind that. But mirror image, I love the formatting in this piece, particularly. That's a great piece anyway. So tell us a bit more about this piece.
Yeah, well, so it starts with human and alien at the end of each um, row down, and then alien to human. Yeah, and it's about the fact that no human is illegal, and horrible circumstances can happen in any part of the world, and you would hope that if you were in their shoes, someone would be kind to you and support you. So it's about displaced people, refugees, and how treating them as aliens is dehumanizing and really sad. So it's a reflection of that, and using alien and human to, you know,
Yeah,
bookend the poem
yeah,
in the
got it.
lines.
I thought so with that. Yeah, no, I agree. It was well done because it's one of those ones where I had to look at that a couple of times on it. I think sometimes in the poetry book, it's good to have pieces like that. Have readers looking at it
Yeah,
the first time thinking, what the? Then you get it on the second and
yeah,
third time. Yeah. Love it.
yeah.
Okay, Too Many Men. Now, I'm asking you about this because people are wondering, if people know Amanda's got a book out tonight about death to all men. So
All right, yeah.
I don't think this book's anything to do with that. It's probably anything to do with
No.
that, but tell us about that then.
Yeah, so I think I originally wrote it about, I think it was a racing car driver who was a pest to women. And everybody knew he was being a pest to women. And that's just a story that you read pretty much every month. There's a new story about somebody who is a pest, a well-known one, and everybody's let it lie, and then it breaks and then it settles and then there's a new one. So it's kind of all about that, but also it's the silence that surrounds that. There's too many men and thriving in silence. That's how these things do continue and will continue, because um that's the consistency, is reading in silence. So
Yeah.
that's what that poem's about.
No, I get it completely. No, great stuff. Oh, it's a great idea, that. Yeah, no. Great idea indeed. So, yeah, no, I'm getting complete with that. So, okay. Meta poems. Oh, God, you're getting deep here now, right? Yeah. Now, I've said before to you, obviously, people know I'm a massive fan of William Carlos Williams. I got into him when I was at uni, and I love his late stuff because he goes really minimalistic. And one of your poems here, This Is Just to Say, I think is a really good homage to him in your voice. So,
Thank you.
tell us about, obviously, you must have some love for William Carlos Williams to write
Yeah,
this poem. So
that's an incredible poem. This is just to say that it can't be bettered. It's just so simple and perfect, and you can't believe that anybody has thought of it, and it exists. It's a perfect poem. Um, and yeah, my homage is about particularly in lockdown, social media became a way of connecting with people, and sometimes you would reply to somebody's story, and the story isn't always to be replied to, and you didn't know that person very well, but it's because it's connected with you. You've just gone quite. I've been quite impulsive and replied, and with a story that reflects back at them. So it's kind of, yeah, using this is just to say, I found your story very relatable. And so it's kind of, yeah, an updated version.
no, no, she said no, understand it completely. No, agreed, agreed. So okay, the other one I really liked this was I loved I write as well. 'Cause I think it's more meta as well. Where I love the repetition on this piece throughout the
Yeah,
full of the all the first stanza, where you change the form completely in the second stanza. It's always
yeah.
clever writing to do that. Was this always going to be the case of this piece, or did it change as it developed?
No, that one came straight out of my pen. So that I just wrote that one. I wanted to write about writing one day. And I think that's maybe about 3 years old, that poem. Yeah, and it came very naturally, and I didn't really edit that one much after I wrote it.
Like sometimes, do you feel like with poetry sometimes it's good in it? Like sometimes you get some pieces that just shoot out at you, don't they? And you're
Yeah.
sat there thinking, my God.
Yeah. Yeah, for small ones, yeah, that can sometimes happen.
Yeah, but some of them can be really deadly as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
throughout the book as well, obviously there's lots of links in it to your Bandcamp page with, and I forgot the term for it, where you can actually do it for your
QR codes, yeah.
QR code. That's it.
Yeah.
I knew said RQ code for a second, but no, it's not. Yeah. What made you want to put the QR codes in the book in various
Um,
places?
so Rose Condo suggested it because I think I put in my first draft that Rose kindly looked over and gave me a lovely quote for the back of the book. I'd kind of guided people to say, well, if you want to hear me say this, this can be found here. And she said, well, why don't you put a QR code in, then people can actually scan it and go straight to hear it, which I hadn't thought of. And it was actually quite easy to do. So yeah, it was a great idea because I know
Oh,
people who have scanned it and listened and got back in touch and said that's a really good idea. We've enjoyed listening.
no, brilliant. No, brilliant. Oh, good stuff. It's a great idea indeed. No, I thought it was certainly. I know a few poets have done this recently, and it gives a different feel to the book altogether. So, no, brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Okay, now obviously, now the book's out of the way. Obviously, I know in a minute, and I don't want to go too much of your personal stuff because I know the stuff going on. But obviously, you're back in Wrexham probably for good now. But do you have any sort of anything you want to reveal next? What's coming up on the horizon for you?
Um, not really. I haven't got any big creative plans right now. I'm still writing and reading. I've got a Substack where I sometimes put some writing, but not really poetry. I kind of on Substack I write about lessons I've learned because of poetry. So, but not how to be a poet, kind of things about people and what I've learned about organizing events or applying for things, or just taking risks. So I do write occasionally on Substack. So that's kind of me still communicating with the world about poetry, but not necessarily sharing it because I do like performing the most. That's how I enjoy my poetry. So I usually have been writing with the idea of performing in mind. And now I'm not really in that space. I'm kind of just finding my way around how I want to write at the minute.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's just time to change for you. So, no, straight away
Yeah,
with that. So, yeah, good luck with
yeah.
answering it completely. So, where can people get hold of your book?
So it's on Amazon. And yeah, if you type in Proving I Exist by Lisa O'Hare, it's on, you can get paperback or the Kindle version. I should say that 50% of the royalties will go to the charity Choose Love and 50% go to the charity Refuge. And yeah, I've got a website, lisao'harewriter.com, and I'm on social media at the Lisa O'Hare on Instagram and Lisa O'Hare Poetry on Facebook.
Brilliant. Well, good luck with that straight away, Lisa. So now
Thank
you've
you.
answered all my questions there, so you give us all your links as well. So brilliant
Thank you.
stuff. Now we're going to wrap up here, part one, guys and girls. It's been a pleasure chatting to Lisa today. It's been too long, Jonesy Lisa,
Yeah,
because
thanks
I
so
was
much,
trying to
Tom.
work out last time I saw you, and I could be wrong with this. I know you had a play you were about to do, weren't you, just for lockdown? I know you did it after, which
Yeah.
means it would have been about 5 years ago then, wouldn't it? Was it beginning
Yeah,
of
I feel like I've seen
2020?
you. I think I've seen you at somebody else's show, maybe at Gulliver's in
Might have
between.
been. Might have been,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's not I've not seen you properly for ages, I know, 'cause me
No,
and Amanda,
it has
yeah,
been, yeah, well
been a
over a
while.
year or
Yeah.
2 years, yeah, at
Yeah,
least.
because I know me and Amanda we came on to watch you after the King was it the Kings in
Yeah.
Salford when you're about
Yes.
to do that play and we came
Yeah.
to watch you do your first draft in and we both afterwards thought it's brilliant. And I know
Yeah.
you did the play, but obviously like I said live
That
to
one
that
got
was
that one got that no, I didn't never did that one again, that
oh we
one.
never did it again. Oh wow,
No,
I never knew that. Oh my God.
no.
Anyway,
But it
maybe in the
exists
future,
somewhere.
yeah, it exists somewhere in the
Yeah.
Neverland, right? So, oh, I never knew
Yeah.
that. So, God.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we'll wrap up part one, guys. Anyway, so we'll shoot back shortly. And Lisa's going to do a few poems for us. It's been a pleasure, Lisa. We shall see you
Thank
all
you.
in two shakes of the dice.